Hello everybody, welcome to All Things Weddings. My name is Wamboe Wawero. If you're new here, kindly consider subscribing if you love anything to do with events. We plan events here, engagement parties, birthday parties, wedding planning, and especially if you got engaged, this is the place for you. Karibu sana. So today I want us to talk about how you should budget for your wedding, or rather what you're supposed to do when you think about getting married, when you have a wedding to plan. The first thing you need to do is research. Research around, especially from your friends who've had weddings recently, but put in mind that costs change depending on the design of your wedding. Research and find out what it is you want for your wedding, how much it costs, depending on the kind of theme of your wedding you would want. The second one is get quotations. It's very important for you to engage different vendors, get quotations, but put in mind when you're getting quotations from vendors and you don't plan to use them, it would be ideal for you to be open and tell them, I'm planning to wed on this and X date, but all I need is a quotation for me to be able to do my calculations. The other thing is you really need to start saving. Our weddings are very expensive, and if you have a plan in place and you start saving for your wedding, it will be very easy. And the easiest thing, and what I did for my wedding, we identified the vendors we needed to use, and because we planned for up to 8 months, we decided to get some money and pay the photographer like half of it, get the caterer, give them an X amount of money, and that way as you go down reducing the cost, you will find out it was easy for you to plan that way. The other one is set limit in the expenditure. Decide if you want a photographer. There are photographers who charge up to 300,000. There are photographers who charge 100. Just decide that my photography will not go limit to this number. You limit it to a certain number, XX. You decide if it's 150, it shouldn't be 180, but it can always go lower because you're saving money. The other thing is decide on the number. Like we've discussed before in the recent videos, the number of guests is what makes your budget go higher or lower. So once you decide you're going to have 150 guests, stick to it, because at the end of it all, you are the one paying for everything for all your guests. The other point is draw your wedding theme. This comes in handy if you're having a planner, but if you cannot be able to have a planner in place, go on Pinterest, download photos, get to know what themes are in what is happening around, the kind of theme that guys are using, and depending on what you love, whatever you've always wanted, just walk around it and find out what it is you can be able to come up with. The other one is stick to your plan. If you decide to have a photographer who is charging X amount of money, you will definitely find photographers who are cheaper, but just be careful, because when the deal is too good, you have to think twice, and especially if you're not going to wed again. So just stick to your plan. If it's 150, if you get someone who is cheaper but you've looked at their work, at the end of it all, you can always work with them. But also you can have you will have decided to use 150, but you get this certain photographer who is charging 200. You need to stick to your plan, because always the budget will go higher than lower if you keep on changing the vendors, and especially if the prices vary. The other one is have a timeline. When you're planning for your wedding, decide you will research, you will look around what it is you want over a period of time. If it's for 2 months, then you start planning, do that, and especially if you're working towards a time. If you're not planning your wedding at that particular time, all you're doing is research and finding out how much you will need, it's okay. But if you're working towards a timeline, first of all, set a date and decide you're working towards this certain date so that you can be able to have your wedding. Point number 9, do not go for below average rate vendors. This is so easy. You will come up across people who are giving you a very, very low price quotation, but find out why. There are people who are honestly looking for their first time clients and they can give you a very good deal, but also just find out, because you do not want to be the sample, because at the end of the day, this is your wedding, and if they messed up, you would regret for the rest of your life. So find out if it's someone who is building their portfolio but they do a good job, because at the end of the day, you can get a very good photographer who's just upcoming but their work is really amazing. All they need is to get those clients, and you could end up having a very beautiful discount, and your wedding will be lovely. The last one is prioritize. Just make sure that you are able to prioritize and know what you cannot compromise on, and especially in our last video we discussed about food. If it's food that you cannot compromise on, go all out, and at the end of the day your wedding will be beautiful. So my lovely people, I hope you've enjoyed this video. If this is your kind of stuff, kindly consider subscribing, and especially if you've gotten engaged, if you're planning a wedding, kindly DM me if you have any questions, and you can always comment below this video. I have an email address down here. Just send me an email, I'll always respond. Till my next video, cheers.